So let's learn about tuples. First, let's look at the problem. Imagine a method called getPriceRange that takes an array of decimals. You might have noticed that return type is blank, and that's intentional, and you'll see why in just a moment. That return type can really be one of three things: void, meaning nothing is returned, a single value, which is straightforward, or a group of values, which is what I will be focusing on next. When returning a group of values, one option is to create a custom type using a class, struct, record, or a record struct. In this case, a price range type with lowest and highest properties. The problem is, what if this is a private method you only need in one place? That means you're creating a brand new type with its own dedicated file just to return two values. That seems like an overkill. Another option is outParameters. This works, but it makes the method signature less intuitive. You're returning values without a return statement. The caller has to declare separate variables upfront, and managing those variables carefully makes it error-prone. Now, let's look at the tuples. As you can see, there are no custom types needed, and also there is no confusing method signature. So the technical definition of tuples is that they are a lightweight structure for temporarily grouping loosely related values together. This helps you avoid creating custom types or using outParameters. Now let's talk tuple syntax. Quick disclaimer, there is a legacy syntax that's more verbose, but it's not worth covering. Instead, I will be focusing on the modern shorthand version. You start with parentheses listing your tuple types inside. Then comes your tuple name. Then an assignment to give it an actual value. Here is a real example, a tuple named price range holding two decimal values. The downside here is that accessing the values isn't very intuitive. To fix that, you can name your tuple fields. The syntax is the same, except now each type has a name alongside it. Once again, here is a real example, which is the same as before, but this time with named fields, making the code far more readable and easier to work with. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, a like and subscribe goes a long way. Now, back to it. So now let's see a more realistic example to tie it all together. Here is a full getPriceRange method. It iterates through the price array and calculates the lowest and highest values. Once calculated, they are returned together as a tuple. Now remember how if tuple fields aren't named, accessing them isn't very intuitive. Let's see what that actually looks like. Imagine the method returns an unnamed tuple. You can still call the method and get a tuple back, but you'd have to access the values using the built-in generic names item1, item2, and so on. As you might have guessed, this is not recommended. Now with named fields, you call the method the same way, but this time you access the values by their actual names, making the code far more readable. This is the recommended approach. And if you want to go one step further, you can use deconstruction, which unpacks the tuple result directly into variables in line, all in a single line. This is also recommended to use when possible. Lastly, let's briefly cover the difference between tuples and value tuples, so you're not caught off guard if you come across them. There are two kinds: standard tuples, which are considered legacy, and value tuples, which is what you've been learning about in this video. Standard tuples are reference types. Value tuples are value types, as the name implies. Standard tuples are heap allocated, making them slower. Value tuples are generally stack allocated, making them faster. With standard tuples, you're stuck with item 1, item 2, item 3, and so on. With value types, you can name your fields, making your code far more readable. Standard tuples are immutable. Value tuples are mutable. Standard tuples have verbose declaration syntax, and value types are concise and clean. For all of these reasons, value tuples are the recommended choice in modern and greenfield projects. Hopefully, this gave you a clear and practical understanding of tuples, and you're now confident using them in your own projects. Now, for more in-depth content, head over to digitaldevacademy.com. Link is in the description below, and I will see you in the next video.